she's the chief of staff for Supervisor Williams. And also we have Matt Pontes, who's the, make sure I get this right, the assistant chief executive officer. But he's primarily been in charge of the recovery efforts, and he's here to ask questions, answer questions. We will make him come up, and we can all fire away once he gets here. But we will. Who do you want to start with? Do you want to start?
Yeah, Chair Cole, members of the commission. Why don't we have planning development give you a brief update on the activities that we've done initially to try to gather some information, provide ease of that, and then we can transition into Mr. Pontes, any questions for him, and then we'll wrap up with Ms. Darcel Elliott from Supervisor Williams' office, if that's okay.
Yeah, I like that. I'd like to get Mr. Pontes back out there on the emergency. So
to follow up on our meeting that we had last month, we did agree to come back before the commission and provide an update. There were some requests and comments made by the commission that we've been diligently trying to implement, and as of yesterday, I probably shouldn't confess to that, we did go live on a couple of items so that we wanted to show you today. Part of the purpose of that is to create ease of access by the citizens to obtain information. I also want to introduce you to some team members here. I have at the table Petra Levy, who's the supervising planner. She's the tip of the spear as far as planning development goes in regards to the zoning counter and taking information, so she's our lead on that. To my left is Tess Harris, who's one of our lead planners, who's also supporting our case manager assignment and delegation of information. We are also trying to make sure that the communication that is leaving our office is consistent and trying to provide consistent answers to the numerous questions that we're receiving on a daily basis. So to bring you up to speed, there was approximately, I think, about 350 cases or properties that were assigned to planners. What we try to do is create a task force or group of staff to be able to address that. And we divided that up into the properties that were more quickly able to repair, rebuild, get the property owners back into that, and then we assigned those properties that received red tags to other planners to help them through the process. So that was a significant effort. It took a little bit of time to be able to sign that. So in addition to all the work that they're doing as well to keep the county operations going throughout the county, they've agreed to take on this additional responsibilities to assist the community in rebuilding and recovering. So that action has happened, and so what I'm going to show you on this interactive map is what we've done is consolidated a lot of this information, not only for the planners to have access to, but also to have the community have access to. So I'll transition to where we're at as far as our online resources. Tessa's going to help me walk through that. So based on the commission's response or request last time, we did update our webpage to provide some information that the citizens can have access to. Part of that is on that, if you look on the screen, the item number 2 on our main webpage, shows information as far as what resources are available to the community to access and where they can go for answers. If you click on any of those links, it just provides you some documentations as far as additional information that they can have. So we're trying to spread that information to the applicants or the members of the community as well. So we transition to the interactive map, and this is where we spent a bulk of our time trying to provide information to the community. It takes a minute to load. So one of the things to note on this map is that it is for information purposes only. We are constantly updating it. We get information daily. We're updating the other databases, so we encourage people to check into it constantly, but to really, when they have questions, to contact either the case manager or Petra Leva, the supervising planner that's responsible for this. So what we've done is, I know we showed this to you briefly at our last commission, but what we've done is made it a little bit more ease of information. So when you access this interactive map, there's 2 ways to gain access to the information. One, you could just find your area and zoom in on it. Others is you can either search by address or you can search by APN number if you have that. What Tess did is she searched by the address and it pulled up a property. And then on each property, it shows the tags that are on the property. And so there might be numerous structures, and so each of those structures might have different tags. So if you click on the square, it's going to bring up an info box. And if you look at that box, I know it might be hard to read, but it shows that there's 3 structures on that property, and it says 1 of 3 records. So you can scroll through those records, and it lists the inspection record that's on the property, as well as the other information. So what this box is, or this tab or record is showing you is it gives you the address, it gives you the APN number. It's also going to give you the case manager's name and email, so that if you're a member of the public, you can email the case manager. In addition, what we've done is linked other resources for the citizens to access. One of the important ones is, as they're assessing their properties and what the next steps are, we've created a link that's called Permit History, and when you click on that link, it takes you directly to a summary of their property and all the permits that we have on file currently, and it's just a starting point for the members of the public to start looking at their property and what's available for them. In addition, as you go through there, we've also added a link to the second link is what we call our Citizens Access Portal. What that takes you to is the public's interface with our electronic database. And if you have and this will work regardless of whether you're part of the Montecito Mudslide or if you just have an active project. So this is available now to the public. So if you have your APN number, your address, your project number, you can search on there and you can see the status of your project. You can see the case notes by the planner. So this is just full of information, some summary of the property, summary of the parcel information. So this is currently available already to the public to research. The other thing that we are currently working on is what we call our digital archive. And what this is are our historic permits, building permits and planning permits. That were on microfiche. They are uploaded into this digital archive. So if you have your APN number or your address, you can search, and what it does is pull up historical information on the property. So this is a valuable tool to allow citizens to be able to access the records on their property. We're currently updating this with historic records, so there's an ongoing effort right now to continually upload historic permits into this database, so that way it's easily accessible by the public. And then we've also included a link to just the parcel page to just give people an idea of what the assessor's parcel maps look like. So this is the effort that we've been ongoing within our department, also coordinating with other departments on trying to pull all the resources available into one central location. It actually gives you an ability to, when you zoom out on the map, so as properties are getting cleared, we are indicating when the properties are cleared. You will see, I think we're taxing the system a little bit. So while it continues to load, what we've done is setting up this particular map is there's originally 500 or so properties that had been tagged. What we did is we excluded all the ones that originally were tagged with the green tags, because that was mainly just clearing the property, debris removal, and there wasn't any impacts or damage to the structures. So the starting point on this particular map was all the properties that were tagged with the red or yellow tag. So that's the starting point, and what the desire of this particular map is to show progress over time. So as properties are getting cleared, you can click on a green box on the map now, and it'll show you that originally it was tagged green and now it's tagged green. So over time, you're going to be able to see properties that are being cleared and allowing members of the community to return back to their homes. So that is going to give you kind of a historical view over time of how the efforts of the community and the county is on being able to allow people to return into their homes and into their neighborhoods. There's also other features available on this map, and so this is an ongoing thing. We do have historical information as far as the flood hazard information on there, that other layers you can turn on. So we are going to be continuing to improve and update this interactive map to provide information to the members of the community. So that way they can, one, find out who their case manager is, find out their APN number if they need it, do their own research on permits if needed, and when they call into the case manager, if they want access to this, we can provide the link to the members of the public. So this is going to become a valuable tool to create this more seamless connection between the community and the department to be able to share information with each other. So that's what I wanted to show you today as far as the efforts we've made on the pulling information together. And this is also, one of the things we're using this tool also is as a case file tool. Instead of having paper copies of information, we're going to a digital format. So this information here is the same as what the planner has on their desk or on their desktops. So it's moving more into the digital era and having access to information to everyone.
Yeah, I think this is a huge advantage. You have to be a professional planner sometimes to find the planner notes and to find everything that the county's always had there. And there are a lot of people who are involuntarily now involved in the process. Commissioner Sinauer.
Yes, I think this is a very much needed approach, and it's almost it's been brought up to date, and probably every day gets some alterations, some modifications per property. Very, very helpful. I have a question about case managers and what their job description is and how the initial contact is made. And you said it was divided between case managers who have red tagged properties vis-a-vis yellow. And if you could just explain a little bit about how that contact happens and what does a case manager actually manage for the property owner? Thank you.
Chair Cole, Commissioner Sinauer. Thank you for that question. I also have Petra Levy, as I indicated, and Tess Harris here, who is also the lead on organizing and training the case managers. So what we've done is after the last Planning Commission meeting, we coordinated or consolidated all the information as far as the red and yellow tag properties. We excluded the green tag. So we sent a mailer out to all the properties that were tagged either red or yellow, because the information we have is just property address and an owner name. So the mailer went out that indicated, your property may have been impacted or was affected. There was an inspection that occurred, and then it listed the case manager and phone number and email. So that way we provided a notice to the members of the community that who their case manager was and how they can contact it. So to get that information, we sent out a mailer. That was one. There's also that information is available at our zoning counter, our building counter, as far as who the case manager is. We have a lot of people that call in and ask, okay, who's my case manager? They are, provided that information and transferred to the case manager. As well as now we've gone live with this interactive map, so it's pushing that information out as far as who your case manager is. And the design of the case manager, the model that we're implementing is to allow the case manager to be that focal point between the department and the community. So as members or the community is returning back to their homes or assessing their property, then they have that point of contact with our department to say, okay, I returned back to my property. What are the next steps? What do I need to do? And so the intention is that case manager there will be there to initiate that conversation. The property owner will make contact. Hey, this is what happened. I have a yellow tag on my property, or I have a red tag. What does that mean? What can I do? And the case manager then is the interface between the department and the members of the community. So they can say, okay, I will contact the building inspector. I'll do the research. I will start pulling the permits together. I will gather this information. So as the resident is identifying, working with their clearing the debris, working with their insurance company, and trying to determine what the next steps are, then the case manager is that backstop as far as the permitting process goes. So the intention is that they could meet, if needed, with the property owner or with the agent and say, here's what the property was inspected as. If you want a follow-up inspection, they help coordinate that with our lead building inspector, which is Brad Crandall. He's been heavily involved in returning to properties and doing those subsequent inspections, and to provide further guidance as far as you need to investigate this further, or you may need to investigate the electricity or mechanical or structural, so that to provide additional guidance. So once that information is obtained, then the case manager would say, here's a permitting path for whatever you're needed to correct or to repair your home. It might be just as far as yellow tags, it might be just a simple building permit to repair electricity, get the power back on, get the utilities back on, or it might be a minor repair to the structures. In the cases of the properties that were red tagged, there's a wide variation on the amount of damage that occurred. It could be anywhere from where significant damage is a total loss, or it could just be minor damage to where part of the house might have been damaged. And so the case manager there to help guide whatever decisions the property manager has. In addition, what we're finding and what we may not have anticipated at the onset was a lot of the questions that we were receiving is in regards to, there's really two halves of what's happening out there. There's the debris removal, and then there's the rebuilding process. So we've got a lot of questions on debris removal and where do I go and how do we do that. And so we're trying to ease the communication between our department and other departments as far as what you do with that. And we're, with assistance with Mr. Pontus and his leadership, we're able to get that information in order to provide that to the public. So in summary, that's what the case manager is the interface between the public and the permitting process, and help with those decision points that they have.
If I could
Go ahead.
continue. Thank you. It seems to me the case manager is critical to the dynamic of information. And basically, our community has many levels of sophisticated and those who do not even have internet. Those are displaced, and et cetera, et cetera. One of the questions I have is the mailer that went out to red tag properties. Those were the addresses that the mailer went to. So if they were displaced, did they necessarily get the mailer? Because the mail was not being delivered for a long time so a lot perhaps did not get the mailer. And then what would be Plan B?
Chair Cole, Commissioner Senhauer. So property owners were able to pick up mail if they were displaced at a post office. But additionally, if they didn't have communication or didn't receive the mailer and wanted to get information on who their case manager was, they could contact the counter. And we have that information readily available, so we're happy to provide that, whether they contact the counter by phone or an individual planner, and we can look that up for them.
Thank you. How many case managers are there?
Commissioner Senhauer, I believe there are 12.
And is that an additional to normal duties at P&D, or were they hired, were some hired just to be a case manager?
So Chair Cole, Commissioner Senhauer, the case manager assignment is in addition to their current workload. We didn't have the resources to hire new people. However, what we have done is looking at our resource allocation. In one particular case, we did do a reassignment of a staff to where their current project loads were reassigned to give them greater capacity to be one of the lead planners on the Montecito. And so her name is Nareda Montano, and she has been assigned to be one of the lead planners, as well as Tess Harris and Petra Leva. So Nareda has received a bulk of those, so there was significant effort to keep operations for the county-wide continuing, as well as reassigning projects to allow some greater capacities for planners to do that. We're looking at other options as well in order to be able to respond as quickly as needed to the community and provide the resources that is helpful to them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Newman.
Thank you. First, I want to compliment staff. I think the map is great and has a lot of robust information. A question and then a couple of suggestions. The question being, do you know how many hits we're getting to the map and to the site? Are we tracking the traffic?
Commissioner Newman and Chair Cole through the chair. Being that this site just went live yesterday, we don't have that number. However, this is something that we can track as far as how many hits there are. So probably as of right now, all the hits are mine because I've been testing it a lot. So the numbers may be skewed just a little bit. And so to clarify to Commissioner Senauer, I do want to make a little bit of clarification. We recently did hire another staff. We were looking at our current workload, so there was another staff that was brought on, so that we have expanded our current staffing position, not specifically for Montecito, but for the overall workload. So we do have additional capacity to assist with the rebuilding efforts, and we've been reassigning projects as well to help with that.
And then if I may, just a couple of thoughts to share, and I've just went to it twice, so we'll add that to the traffic report. This is a great resource, and I think it would be very helpful to the community, and I'm pleased that Mr. Pontus is here. If we could have a link that would direct traffic to the county planning and development information on the county website itself. Clearly, the county website is the focus of most community interaction concerning, as I refer to it, all things Thomas. So building that link for those in Montecito to look to resources on that page, I think would be useful. I'd also like to suggest, if possible, that we add aerial imaging. I understand that that's available, whether it's in Eagle View or otherwise. And I would hope also that P&D might develop collectively through the case manager's input or otherwise some FAQs that could also be on the website regarding the rebuilding, because the same questions seem to be reoccurring, and as best we can both give answers and maybe have some information there, I think that would be useful.
Chair Cole, Commissioner Newman, I do want to point you to the Rebuilding Montecito section of our website. The bottom of it does have some frequently asked questions specifically regarding the rebuilding process. So when you click on that, there are a number of questions, and then they'll pop up with answers as well.
So for our next meeting for the report that we are going to have on the mudslides, if you could add, just let us know how it's going with the website. I think it's tremendous. I think it's a good question, how many hits, so we can be updated next month on that. I can tell you this will be a great resource.
So Chair Cole and Commissioner, if I can respond to Commissioner Newman real quick. The web interface already has aerials. They are going to be whatever is provided by that service provider. They're not going to be the most current. I know, talking with our IT staff, that Google has some more updated information. So it might be a possibility we could put a link here, but I can't promise that until we do some more testing on that. But this map does allow you to at least add additional layers that you can view aerials, historic aerials, that as far as current when this map went live. So there is a number of options as you explore this web interface that you can look at a lot of different information on there. So there's USGS maps or interfaces or overlays that you can put on there as well.
Okay, well, I think this is an evolving, a lot of this is iterative, so we'll look at it next time. I think it's tremendous. We'll use it in the meantime ourselves. Next, I'm going to turn to Mr. Arcel Elliott or Mr. Pontes, whoever wants to start. The Assistant CEO and in charge of the disaster recovery. Thank you for being here. We know you have a lot of other things going on.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk a little bit about the recovery efforts. So let's start with a couple of the comments from the commissioners. We certainly appreciate planning and development's work, hard work on this this new platform that allows us to see a little more clearly the status of our homes and residences across the area there. We'll make sure that that gets linked up with the county's website, and we'll make sure that that we have, as was said, that this is a process that's going to take a little time to refine, and we'll make sure that all the links and everything get adjusted so that we can get to it from many different places. And then we have consistency in the information and the terminology on the maps. That's been a big thing that we've been working on. So my name is Matt Pontus, Assistant CEO of the County of Santa Barbara. I'm here today to talk a little bit about current status of our recovery efforts. So as we continue forward, our primary mission is still focused on safety. When I say safety, I mean safety from the debris, traffic safety, and communicating everything we can on storm readiness. To that end, we continue to reshape, and since the last time I was here before the commission, have redone some of the county's websites. We're still at countyofsb.org, but we have a new readysbc.org site that we've modeled after Sonoma County and their wildfires up there. And I hope that everyone has a chance to go to that website and to see the information that's there. We've tried to put it forward in a clear, easy to format that's easy for everyone to get to. We're also still hoping that everyone goes to awareandprepare.org to sign up for alerts and to stay current on our evacuation protocols and processes. Another thing that the commissioners talked about this morning was the incredible private and public partnerships that have been happening since the last time I was here about a month ago. We have some incredible projects that we're working on for the short term and for the long term. We have community members, volunteers, local, state, and federal agencies working together like I've never seen before. And it really is a testament to everyone working together for a common goal. And that common goal is coming together to build a more resilient Montecito, resilient from our traffic impacts, from disasters, and building a more resilient community from within, from ourselves, and as we work together through challenges. One of the notable achievements over the last couple weeks is the incredible amount of work that the U.S. Army Corps through FEMA and Cal OES on clearing of the debris basins. We're left with only one debris basin left to clear, and we're working on Santa Monica debris basin, and I've been told that we're about halfway through that debris basin. They're running trucks 24/7. You can see the lights up on the hill day and night as they work to try and clear that. Last night at a Carpinteria public meeting, we showed some drone video that showed the before and after of how that particular debris basin that was constructed, I believe, after the 1969 winter storm events, how much debris that it caught, and it's unbelievable. It really is and it's on our County of SB website as well. But those debris basins really did save a lot of lives, and our focus has been to try and clear them out prior to the next storm. One of the things that we're working on and that have challenged us is the traffic in Montecito and surrounding areas. Certainly from a public safety standpoint, we're working with all of our partners to make sure that as we look at our options, that we're looking at and we're focused on long-term solutions. We know that these bridges that are out across 192 and across the community are going to take a while to design, reconstruct, and become operational. We also know that the private property debris clearing, as well as the remaining creek channels that need to be clear, are going to take a lot of truck traffic. And we're working to make sure that we understand how the ingress and egress routes flow. And we've got a whole traffic team that's now focused on that, meeting a couple times a week to have new ideas, to vet old ideas, and to think of some innovative solutions to our problem. Because the problem's going to be here for a while as we move forward. And we want to make sure that we put our best traffic minds on, and in conjunction with our local Public Works Department, our California Highway Patrol, our Sheriff's Office, and some of the contractors in the area, that we're all working together to come up with a solution. We've saw a lot of accidents with the large dump trucks, in the first week or two after the 1/9 event, and we want to minimize that to the highest degree possible. So the other focus that we've been on is storm readiness. We've been out messaging the communities. We did a community meeting in Montecito and as well as Carpinteria last night, talking about our new plans for evacuation and messaging. And all of that information can again be found on our readysbc.org site and through the countyofsb.org site. So we have a new campaign out there for storm readiness, and it clarifies some of the terminology and some of the areas and some new interactive maps that are associated with that. Private debris still continues to challenge us. We haven't seen all of the debris yet. And I don't want to scare anyone in the community. I don't want to worry everyone, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge the reality that the channels are still full in the watersheds above the community. And we actually showed a little bit of drone video last night of some of the large amount of boulders and rocks in those channels, in those watersheds above the communities of Montecito, Carpinteria, and Summerlin. And as we work through solutions, and as our commissioner talked about some short-term strategies, we've got some folks working on that right now, and our hope is that as we bring experts in from around the world and here locally to look at some of these mitigations, that we can come up with some short-term solutions that really help us with this situation. We're also looking at where to put the current private debris. We're trying to find solutions that are low cost, that are environmentally viable, and that make it easy for folks to dispose of debris here locally. And we're still pushing folks to keep as much of it on site to minimize traffic and minimize some of the other impacts as possible for right now. One of the key pieces of the operation is now kind of shifting to land information collection. And we've talked a little bit about this before, and that's trying to make sure that we have the parcels, the creeks, the boundaries all identified, so we understand the relationship between where homes are and the creek channels and where homes in some cases were and the creek channels. That is going to be a big driver moving forward on our planning and building, permitting, and rebuilding. So this week and the next week, we're bringing on some new members of our team. Some consultants are going to come and help us. Some are focused on the technical aspects of some of this stuff, like the land mapping portions and the surveys and some of that. Some are going to be focused on financial to make sure that we're leveraging every bit of county resources with state, federal resources, and with our volunteer groups and our community. We also are bringing in some experts to help us politically. We know that that as appropriations bills and Senate bills go through across the state on different things, that we need some help, and we're going to be looking to some of our leadership to help us through this and help us do things like potentially improving the size and capacity of our creek channels and our debris basins, and looking at other grant fundings from state and federal resources that'll help us do some of these projects. So, kind of to sum up, I'm excited for Montecito. I'm excited for our collective team of the community and local, state, and federal governments working together. We're engaging the tribal interests in Montecito as well to make sure that we're documenting and protecting sites as best as we can moving forward. I know this is also going to be a marathon and not a sprint, to be a resilient community. So I know that we can get there together, and I'm committed to doing so. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Newman.
Thank you. A question on a macro level. I'm unclear where the analysis and decision-making is being made for planning and development-related matters arising out of, as I refer to it, all things Thomas. So as an example, setting new floodplain elevations for construction. Is that occurring in your team and in that environment, or is that a a la carte item with our P&D staff, or is it both? I'm a little unclear.
So, Commissioner, through the chair, if I may, that process is both departments working really good together. I think what we've got right now is we've got FEMA out there helping us with some of the watershed mapping portions of this. And so to redelineate, re-identify, re-survey those pre-existing channels to make sure that the flood mapping is accurate as we move forward. We know that some things have changed out there, and as we're clearing those creeks, we're working with them to make sure that everything gets mapped, and then planning and development and ourselves on the recovery side work together to kind of marry those things up and make sure that everyone understands, like I said earlier, the relationship between the parcels and the foundations and the homes and in relation to the creek channels. Obviously, there's a big portion of that that then feeds into insurance companies and the ability to rebuild and not rebuild. So one of the things that we've added to our organization, at least the organizational chart for now, and hopefully in the next week or so into our organization, is a team of analysts that can come through and that kind of specialize in some of these other building in and around flood-prone areas or creek channels that may have changed the duration and the frequency of floods. So we're bringing this team of analysts on that'll work hand in hand with our planning and development department to make sure that everyone's on the same page moving forward.
And understanding you certainly may not know today what the outcome of that process will be, do you have a sense of timing? Because that's obviously on everybody's mind, just as the topic for those who are most acutely affected is whether they're on whether they now own an unbuildable piece of property, whether there's compensation will be available, and also code compliance going forward.
Commissioner Newman, through the chair, so that is the million-dollar question. What is the timing of that? Because it leads us to so many decisions, and it is our goal to have that timeline as short as possible. However, we know that that the land mapping and the truthing of that data by the organization that's going to be doing a lot of that, and then marrying that up with the analytics to make sure that all of those forces combined, the FEMA land mapping and our private consultants that are doing the land mapping, that information then is joined with the planning and development. I think that process will take no less than 60 days, more likely 90 days, to pull everything together and to try and understand where to go from here. The good news is that we can run parallel processes during that time. So as you heard a little bit about planning and development's great work on the case managers, as information has come in and collected and understood and evaluated, we're going to have a parallel path to where, hopefully as those areas and the information comes in, that we can have those case managers work directly with the homeowners to, at the very soonest opportunity possible, be able to get determinations made and recommendations made so that they can move forward.
And then just lastly, be careful whenever a lawyer says last question. There's always one more after that. Is it contemplated in your process that the output of your deliberations, of the consultations and the like, would come to us for review and input? Would there be public hearing process apart from our usual or special meetings? What's contemplated there for both public input as well as Montecito Planning Commission? Kind of looking for preview of coming attractions.
Right. Commissioner Newman, through the chair, I don't think you're going to be rid of us soon. We're going to be here often, and we're going to be here hopefully to go through the process with you. So it would be our intent to come back to this commission and obviously provide updates as we move through the process, and then towards the end of the process, certainly there'll be a piece of Montecito Planning Commission's decision-making and involvement in this process.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stenauer.
Thank you very much for your report. First of all, is there any way to get those drone videos online for the community members who couldn't attend in the CARP meeting last night?
Absolutely. They should be on our website now, but I'll
should?
double
Okay.
check and make sure that they're there and easily able to be found.
Thank you. Also, regarding the components and elements of you just described, the process, remapping, reconsideration of floodplains, etc. Is there any the process, can that be online somewhere or other than a meeting today where you verbally are going through it? So someone could link into what's going on now. Is it all those elements are so crucial for someone to just take a look at and see they're considering floodplain recategorization, this. And if it could be done weekly, whatever, is there any sort of approach to do that? Or is it all online that I have not seen?
Commissioners through the chair, that's a great question. Our team is working on two things. One is timelines and one is metrics. So first and foremost, timelines that fully illustrate what to expect and what's going on behind the scenes. I think that you saw probably early on after the 1/9 debris flow, we had some pretty specific targets of having large amounts of the repopulation done by January 31st. We were going to have all the utilities there, and we were going to have the gas, the sanitary, and the power all restored by those times, and have our roads cleared to the residents by that time. So we're going to have a similar thing as we move through this next set of objectives, as we move through some of the land mapping and some of that kind of thing, so that everybody understands what's going on behind the scenes. And also metrics. Metrics are really important so that everybody understands, what's happening out there. So we've been collecting a lot of data on the cleaning of the debris basins, the cleaning of the creek channels that still has yet to be finished, as well as our roads. So I think you're going to see in the next week some additional metrics and additional milestones, if you will, that'll be tied so that everybody understands where we're at.
Mr. Pontes, when the first time I laid eyes on you, I think was February 21, and you have a few more gray hairs this month. So we really appreciate everything you're doing and everything that the county's doing. Every single day when I drive back between my home and my office, I see the homes of people who I knew and known for 30 years. We've raised our kids together, and they're not here anymore. So we really appreciate it. And we'd like to see you back again, as Mr. Newman suggested. We're all very interested in the debris basins, the channels above us full of boulders. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. We've got a great team focused on this. So thank you very much. We'll be back.
Okay, next up, like in my generation, Cher had one name. I think Darcel. We all know Darcel Elliott, the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Williams. She's going to give us a report on the stakeholder process. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for having me here today, but also for all the work that you've been doing in the community. There have been so many meetings since all of this has transpired, and I've seen all of you at all of them, and you've been so helpful to us and just being out there on the streets and talking to people and getting information to our office. So I really want to thank you for all the work you're doing. And I also want to introduce, I think you all know them, but everyone here in the room today, our other team members in the 1st District Office, Ashley Cruzel, who many of you will know as the queen of DOS's schedule. So Ashley is everyone's best friend. And Emily Elzine, who is new to our office. She's been here a month in our office for a month as of tomorrow. So it was an interesting time to come into our office, but she's caught on quickly and has been really helpful in everything. So it's not just me and DOS doing this work. It's really all of us that are trying really hard to answer everyone's questions. And we do get a lot of questions and concerns, as all of you do. We also get a lot of ideas about how to use this disaster as a way to accomplish some things that people in Montecito have been wanting to do for a long time. There's the short-term goals and the long-term goals, and there's just a lot of, everyone is kind of in a different place too in Montecito. There are people, who are still trying to figure out how they're going to get mud off their property, and there are other people who are, already planning a memorial park for the properties that we don't even know if they can be rebuilt on yet or not. So everyone's kind of in a different place. So we've been trying to figure out how do we accommodate all these needs. And so we came up with a stakeholder process that was unveiled at the January 26th community meeting. And I put together a little overview of the process that all of you received. Hopefully you read it. I'm sure you did. And also there's copies in the back for anyone who wants to see it, but I put together a little PowerPoint that kind of summarizes what was said in this. And I didn't spend a lot of time on this PowerPoint because I have other things going on, as I'm sure you know. But it's just a brief summary. I use this, right, Jeff, or 1, 2, okay. Thanks. Our office has been getting a lot of ideas and everything, like I said, about where to go from here and variety of different paths and things like that. And so it's been kind of difficult for Doss and I to be the only ones to say yes or no, that's a good idea, not a good idea. You know, there's a lot of really brilliant people in Montecito, and there's a lot of capital, human capital, money capital that exists out there that can be really useful in trying to get some of these projects done. So we wanted to put together a process that could bring together all these people, vet some of the ideas, and determine which ones are feasible to do now, which ones are a long-term process, which ones, you know, can the county take care of, which ones do we need private entities to step in if it's something that the community wants to see done. And so, as I discussed, on January 26th, we held a meeting that announced the stakeholder process and did release a survey that we've been getting results from the community on. And so I've gotten a lot of questions about what is the stakeholder process? What does it do? What is it going to be? And so I put together this statement of purpose of what I really see the stakeholder process as being. So it's really just meant to advise Montecito's decision makers on the various ideas that have come from the community within the framework of the Montecito Community Plan and architectural guidelines, and discuss how to implement these ideas and determine the timeline for doing so. And so Montecito's decision makers, that's the MPC, that's MBAR, Montecito Fire Protection District, Montecito Water District, Montecito Sanitary District. They're the entities that are going to be hearing projects or deciding what projects to move forward in the future. And so, for process organization, so surveys were collected from January 26th to February 12th, and community members were able to sign up for the following roles. I believe all 3 of the commissioners were at that are here today were at that meeting, and also Commissioner Keller was there. So the titles that were announced were lead, partner, follow, and honor, and each one kind of lays out a different path to participate in this process. So lead are the people who are actually signing up for a real commitment to really see through the rebuilding of Montecito from beginning to end, which could last, you know, from 2 to 5 years, as we've all heard a lot. So this is a slide I actually took directly from the presentation that was given at the January 26th meeting. And it says the initial next steps after that meeting would be survey, distribution, and collection, which, as I already said, happened until February 12th. Identifying of leadership group and planning meeting. So we've been in the review of input from the survey part since February 12th. And now we're in development of priorities and processes. So we need to figure out a facilitator to guide this process through, because our office it wouldn't be appropriate for our office to determine how this process is going to go, because we're one of the decision makers that this process will be advising. So we're working with some other people in the county and some other stakeholders and trying to figure out who can be a good facilitator for this process. And then establishment of core leadership group and expectations, creation of first round of potential projects and ideas. So those 2 are things that I'm going to discuss with you today, and that will also be discussed at our first stakeholder meeting when it takes place. And so, and as you all know, I think you discussed this at your last meeting, we have to have less than a quorum of any Brown Act bodies participate in the process. And so this commission chose Commissioner Newman and Commissioner Keller to participate in the process. So this is really a chance to give Commissioner Cole and Commissioner Sendhauer an opportunity to hear the same information and give some feedback. So there's going to be I'll just move on. Okay, so survey results. So we had 386 individual surveys received. 298 of those identified themselves as residents of Montecito. And I really want to stress that this was not a scientific survey. We don't think this was a scientific survey. There wasn't random sampling done or anything. We tried our best to get the survey out as widely as possible to get the most diverse feedback. And, I think it's definitely a lot of good information, and it's a lot of the same themes kept popping up, which I'll go over in a second. Of those 386 survey responses, 129 people signed up to be leaders. So Montecito is not short on leadership, as we know. So, of those who signed up to be leaders, 96 identified themselves as residents of Montecito. And I say identify themselves as residents because I've gone through some of those addresses to confirm if they're in Montecito or not. But so I don't want to make any assumptions yet. So one of the questions of the survey was ideas for the future. So the top 3 responses, so in the little report that I gave all of you, that's there in the back. There's also a little bar graph that shows some of the responses we got. So the top 3 suggestions in the survey was bike and pedestrian access improvements. That was 128 of the 386, I believe, was the total. Memorial Park got 78 responses, and underground utility 71 responses. Other responses that were given were preserving the character of Montecito, environmentally conscious rebuilding, community space and support, trawl system restoration, updated flood evacuation plan, updated emergency alert system, expedite the permitting process, and developing community leaders. And I really want to stress for this one that these were not multiple choice answers. It was an open-ended question. So these are things that people wrote out. It doesn't mean that if someone wrote Memorial Park that they don't also support undergrounding utilities or something like that. It's just they weren't given suggestions. So this isn't necessarily ranking what's most popular. It's just what was mentioned most frequently. And there was another question about who should be included in the process. And so the top 3 groups that were mentioned in the survey were the Montecito Association with 134 responses, local business community with 81 responses, and county planning and development with 73 responses. So you have to be a part of it. So other groups frequently mentioned were nonprofits, elected officials, schools, MBAR, Montecito Trails Association, the American Institute for Architecture, I think it's AIA, MPC, Santa Barbara Contractors Association, the Community Environmental Council, our special districts, so the Water Protection District, Fire Protection, and sanitary districts, and then the faith community. And so again, this was not a multiple choice answer, it was an open-ended answer. And so with this one in particular, I think that certain groups were not mentioned because of an assumption that they would be a part of the process. So, I don't think that this necessarily indicates, who should be a part of the process more than any other group. It just shows other groups that we mostly did it to see what other groups could we have been missing that might have been included. So. And then, so what's next? So as I discussed, we're working on bringing on a facilitator right now. And then there will be a meeting of only those who signed up to be a leader. And I want to be really clear on that piece because, as I mentioned, 129 people signed up to be leaders. That's already not quite a workable group of people, and we need to figure out how to break that group down a bit. And if we have more people who are coming in just because they're curious, that's going to complicate matters even more. So our January 26th meeting kind of, also turned into a community information meeting because people are so hungry for information, as was mentioned. So concurrently to these stakeholder meetings, we'll also be doing community information meetings so that people who just want answers to questions can go to the correct meeting, and then those who are working more long-term vision can go to the stakeholder meetings, and those who signed up to be a part of that process. So I think that pretty much covers all of it. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your efforts and DOS's office and everything you're doing. You mentioned facilitator, and do you have a general timeline? Because the facilitator is sort of the crucial component and element to get this stakeholder group started.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, if it was up to me, it would have been settled 2 weeks ago. So I'm really hoping we're going to close that out within this next week or so, and so that we can at least, get the ball rolling. The other piece that I didn't mention in this that is going to be a critical piece in terms of thinking long term is figuring out how properties are going to be, how rebuildable properties are going to be, I guess, is the best way I could phrase it. That, when we're talking, Memorial Park was one of the most popular options. And if we're talking about, building a park on some of the properties that people aren't going to choose not to rebuild on, people need to know the options for rebuilding before they can determine if they're going to rebuild or not.
So there'll be an interface with Mr. Pontes and his group, and
Yes.
you'll come together so one doesn't have expectations that perhaps will not be manifest.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think one thing that we will be doing, because we may not have you every single meeting, is because Commissioner Newman and Keller are the representatives from the Planning Commission. As part of our agenda, the first item, we'll get a report from you and Commissioner Keller as we go through. Well, thank you very much. I know you have other things to do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for letting us know and the community know. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. We're moving Dr. Russell up from number 6 to number 2, even though he's number 1 in our hearts. And then we'll continue on with the Sturgis matter afterwards. And we'll give you, after Dr. Russell speaks, we'll take a very quick 5-minute break so you can set up, and then we'll go.